I think that I have verbal facility because I've taken so much of this drug. And maybe I had a tendency toward it at the beginning, being Irish and not given to hard work. Temporarily, like when you take psilocybin, if you actually try to do what we call raving, which is, a high-speed soliloquy, but the raving can just go anywhere, and is, if it's true that what we are creatures of information, then this is very interesting, that it synergizes this ability. Everything that we are doing is informational deployment. I mean, we take in raw materials and we excrete manufactured objects, which are essentially ideas. We take in air and we expel words. Everything we do is about stamping higher orders of information on unorganized lower forms of raw material. And it's moving out of us, moving out of our bodies, this technical engine that we have created of computers and scientific institutions and rapacious government agencies and commercial concerns. It has a life of its own. It's defining what humanity will be for itself. It's a war about language, about, Joseph Goebbels was the great 20th century thinker who understood this more clearly than anyone else and set the tone, set the rules of the game, so that the deconditioning effect of the drugs, the introduction to alien modalities, the glossolalia, the accessing of the vision state, all of these things have to do with information and the life of its own that it is taking on. And we are like the privileged observers of this. It's as though, no less a psychedelic voyager, researcher, and bon vivant than William Burroughs said, English is a virus from outer space. And that's what I've been trying to say, and now I'm finished. Yeah.
See, the first thing that comes to mind when we talk about the creative power of sound or language, for me, is the experience that I had with the holoponic sound, where you have a sense, that qualities in other senses are created through sound.
Right.
And I wonder what would happen if you record this holophonically, and then people listen to it.
Now that's an idea. That's a very interesting idea.
I heard a lot of things, where it transmits qualities of emotions, people in unusual states and so on. But there I came as close as I've ever been to understanding that there's something special about the creative power of sound.
Of sound, yes, I think so.
I always saw it as a metaphor that what science has discovered about vibrations, and it's sort of when they talk about sound, they really mean vibrations, and not sound literally.
Well, they talk too much about sound, I think, and not enough about language. Most people, when they think about the creative power of sound, they think about the mantric approach, syllables, sustained tones. And what I'm more interested in is the self-transforming power of grammar, that there is really something going on there.
Yeah, but it's just the next stage.
Right. Well, these things, it's all gradations. This is all of a piece somehow, and how the visual cortex and the voice relate to each other is not well understood. One thing I want to mention, I just thought of it, but because there may be experimentalists in the room. This was appeared 3 months ago in Scientific American, and to me it just seems astonishing. It is that anyone who can sustain 100 hertz hum, that's 100 cycle per second hum, can look at an electric fan, and if you can sustain this 100 cycle hum, you can slow the fan down, make it appear to stop, make it go backwards. You can do this to a phonograph record, you can do it to a spinning wheel. And this is not stoned. This is simply using the voice. well, it sounds like pure magic. How can such a thing happen? The explanation of the Scientific American was that actually the resonant voice cavity is imparting vibration to the eyeballs, and that it's actually this subtle vibration is breaking up the photon input, and you're actually getting a stroboscopic effect. Well, the guy who wrote the article said that he had no training in music and was tone deaf. So to test the theory that it was vibration of the eyes, he built a little machine where he strapped his chin onto a box, and by manipulating a dial could make the box vibrate and impart the vibration to his chin. So then, and he also used, you can make TV pictures appear to roll, or you can fix rolling without getting out of your chair by doing it. And he attached his chin to the box and ran it up to 100 hertz, and lo and behold, this effect was happening. Well, imagine an Amazonian shaman being able to approach a waterfall or something like that and make the water stop or flow uphill, things like this, with no technology except the human voice. How many things are there like that, you know? How many human abilities are there that we are just unaware of or have masked? And what could you do with it? I mean, I suggest stopping a waterfall, because I've just given it 5 seconds thought. But what if you'd given a millennium of thought to social institutions and little tricks and party games that could be used if you could stop time with your voice? And we bring orthodox physics to bear and say, well, acoustical vibration, stroboscopic effect, etc., blah, blah. But what is experientially happening is, here's a man who uses sound to control the speed of passing time. If that's not a magical ability, what is? And yet it's all nuts and bolts. And he hasn't even taken his first hit of ayahuasca. This is just on the natch, right? So what happens when you add in, you know, the exotic psychodynamics of these compounds?
Well, that's a lot. What things come to mind. One is, I understand that Hitler's generals would go into him, you know, and they're going to talk him out of this next invasion because he's totally off the wall. And they come out glassy-eyed and convinced they're going to go invade somewhere.
Well, he'd probably been chatting with Joseph Goebbels before they walked in.
And the other thing is Milton Erickson, who just with his voice does all sorts of things with people that are, you know, totally.
He can't
totally
even speak
amazing.
their language. He can do it to people that he doesn't understand them and they don't understand.
Totally with sound, and he moves his head around in real unusual ways, even after he stopped talking. You know, who knows what that is?
Ayahuasqueros are interesting because when you meet a few of them, they all have a bunch of mannerisms which have to do with their voice and a certain sound that they make. Who the only honky I've ever met who came even close to this was Ralph Metzner. Has a curious speech habit, which is this, it's a kind of a purr at the back of your throat. But these ayahuasqueros do it very noticeably, and when they're listening to you, you hear them purring, and they have very smooth, liquid, invasive voices. And of course, ayahuasca, the way in which it's taken, it's very interesting. There's no drumming, I've never seen a musical instrument at an ayahuasca session. Everything is voice, voice, voice. And that's what they're into. Don Fidel is a good example. Many of you have probably heard his tape, but there are many such practitioners. They also, in the curing process, use very sharp sounds. And in fact, when you talk to Don Fidel, he has a very animated style that is not the macho Spanish style at all. His speech is punctuated with all these aspirations, sharp sounds, and he obviously has a relationship to sound that's very different than we do. We can play it sometime or in an intermission sometime. And it's wonderful to trip to. It's very good. So that's how the boar ate the cabbage.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.